Hey guys, Bill here with World Made Simple, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into our segment on geography. So I'm going to split this up into multiple segments because it's probably the best way of doing it, into kind of the different types of geography that we have. Now, for those of you who need kind of a quick overview and a simple overview on geography, it's basically the very ground you're standing on, or lack thereof of ground to stand on. It's what you live in your surrounding area. So this varies drastically based on where you are, and this is going to determine ultimately how successful your nation is going to be overall. Because if you don't have geography, you can't really do much as a nation for a variety of reasons we'll get into. So the first thing we're going to talk about is probably the biggest thing in terms of getting a nation off the ground, and that is going to be security. Now, security might seem like a weird thing to start with, but starting with it primarily because I think it's the easiest one for people to process. There are more important things than just security, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but we're to start with security. So security can come with a variety of factors, and the best way to kind of explain it, especially to my American viewers, is to look at the geography of the United States when it comes from a security standpoint. So there's only been two times where the United States has been directly invaded in the continental United States. That was nearly 200 years ago, War of 1812 and the Revolutionary War, and the Brits and Canadians were already here, so they kind of didn't really have to go across a lot of our barriers. We haven't had an invasion since. Someone I know is going to argue, well, what about Alaska? Yeah, Alaska got invaded during World War II by the Japanese, and they left because it's Alaska. Invading Alaska is miserable, and that goes into why the US has the best defensible borders in the world. We have the Pacific on one side, the Atlantic on the other. So first off, you got to go ahead and cross an ocean just to get to the United States. Additionally, this is a deep ocean with very few non-US controlled islands between them. So in terms of the Atlantic, you have Bermuda, and that's it. Bermuda is not a very good island to jump forward for an invasion, so you don't have a very good invasion base. On the Pacific side, you have Hawaii. Good luck, because Hawaii is basically a US Navy fortress at this point, and invading an island, amphibious warfare, amphibious invasions by themselves are a military nightmare. So you have the oceans by themselves. Let's say you get past the oceans. You somehow go ahead, figure out a way to cross the oceans. Well, on the East Coast, you have the Appalachian Mountains. The Appalachian Mountains are some of the oldest mountains on planet Earth. They're not super tall, but they present enough of a barrier where it is going to be miserable. It's hill country, it's tough country to make it through. Additionally, that's where the South is, which means it's going to be hot and miserable while you're trying to scale these mountains, under fire from probably one of the most armed populations in the United States. I know it's not geography based, but still, it's miserable. You want to try it on the West Coast? Ooh, that's worse, because you got the Rocky Mountains, and the Rocky Mountains make the Appalachian Mountains look tiny in comparison. So if you really want to go ahead and invade past all that, you're not going to have a good time. Well, let's go ahead and try and invade through the south. Desert. You want to invade through Mexico, which is a desert and mountains combination. Have fun. Well, let's try the north. Aforementioned Alaska. Why Alaska is miserable is it's a giant tundra with a mountain range on it. So once again, miserable to go through. And if you do get to Alaska, Canada's the same thing. So you have a tundra mountain combination, not a great way to get through. The only other place that you can go, and the best possible kind of invasion route if anyone was to attack the United States, is the Gulf Coast, which is all marshland and swampland. And invading through marshland and swampland is awful as well. You get stuck, you can't have maneuver warfare. It's very difficult to do so. The last kind of place that you could look is Texas. Enough said on that one. Texas is hot. Really, really hot. That's not even counting the view of the Texas population towards an invading population. So geography makes America very difficult to invade. Another good example of this would be places like France. They have the mountain boundaries between them and Spain, which is where the natural border lies, because that's the most sensible border. No one was really able to invade past that point. It's the reason the Italian borders are the way they are with Northern Europe. That's where the Alps are. That's why they stop there. Chile, the reason that nation is just a long strip of land is because it straddles excuse me, the South American mountain ranges. Like every single major mountain range today is a border between one nation and another. India and China are another great example. Mountains and natural barriers are a great way of forming borders. They're a great way of denominating where states end and start, and they're great defense points, and that's why most nations use them. So that's why we're starting with defense, because it's kind of fairly obvious. You're looking at it saying, oh, okay, invading a mountain is hard, invading through tundra is hard, invading through a swamp is hard. That makes sense. Some of this other stuff you might not have heard before going forward. So the next thing we're going to talk about is actually going to be land in terms of growing land. We'll talk about that in our next video. All right? See you around, guys.